Indigenous futurism is a concept that is at the root of many exhibitions at the Urban Shaman Gallery in the Exchange District. And that concept can look different to many artists, but perhaps none take it quite so literally as Taylor McArthur. The Montreal-based Nakota artists exhibition The Sky Remembers invites audiences into an immersive virtual reality experience of Indigenous futurism. Taylor joins us now on Classic 107 to tell us more about the exhibition. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, for those who might not be familiar with the concept, and depending on who you ask, maybe there's some different definitions at play here, how would you describe Indigenous futurism and how it comes to play in your work?
Yeah, so the best way I would describe Indigenous futurisms is usually, I guess, like when you reflect on like Indigenous art, a lot of people tend to think like that it's like traditional artwork, like painting, and it's often like related to as like things in the past, whereas like Indigenous futurisms, like places, how we envision ourselves and see ourselves in our culture in the future.
Okay. And now there's something interesting that comes into play with your work, The Sky Remembers, because a lot of it, based on my observations of it, is that there's this permeating theme of memory that also feeds in to the exhibition. How does the idea of memory, things that occur in the past, feed into what Indigenous futurism can be?
Yeah, so for me, I'd say, I guess I'm very like influenced by like the lands where I grew up on. So like growing up
Mm.
in like mix of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, the prairies have always been home to me, and I've very much noticed like since moving away from there, I have this like calling back to it. Like I've had this feeling of like wanting to be at home. Um, for the past, I don't know, about a year or so now.
Mm.
And with my artwork, I tend to often dream a lot, like about the prairies, or specifically like at my Musham's house, which is in Saskatchewan. And I feel like sometimes I have these dreams where like I'm speaking in a language that I can't even understand in my dream, and I'm speaking it with someone else. And then to me, I kind of feel like maybe that's me speaking like our language that we lost. And then that's how it comes into play with like the
Mm.
land, the sky remembers. Cause like I feel like there's things that are like trying to speak to us, but we're just like learning how to like kind of get back into it.
Well, one of the other things that this exhibition explores is these unseen energies, kind of tapping into what you were just saying there, that are at work around us. I'm wondering, how does one capture unseen energy and channel that into art? Because again, I'm going to imagine that those energies can manifest themselves in different ways
Mhm.
based on who is trying to portray them or capture them.
So I'd say for that, the unseen energy and the way that I try to capture that would be through like light. So like in
Mm.
most of my pieces, you notice like there's a lot of like glowing kind of aspects with like neon colors. And to me, like emitting that light, kind of showing that aura or whatever you want to call it, that people or spirits have. And then the other way is like I also tend to use a lot of glass with the light because I really enjoy the way that like the glass material and the 3D software that I use interacts with the light, and it really like throws it like in the space, or like it kind of just distorts it.
How does the use of these materials that you use as you're working with light, there's a virtual reality component to the Sky Remembers as well. How does all of that work to help you feel more in touch with these communities, these lands that you and your family have been based on?
I don't know. I guess the way that I try to like capture it in the pieces that I do is like I really try to capture like the different feelings. Like I've noticed a lot of like light even growing up, like just say sitting outside in the summertime when I was a kid. I'd pick up on different things, and I'd often like explain it and talk about it to my friends or family, and sometimes they just like didn't understand. And then I realized as I got older and I got to like incorporate that into my artwork, it was
Mm.
my way of showing other people like this is how I see the world, and like I can see a lot of the beauty in it. And then when people are like inside like these VR spaces or in 3D, like they finally get a sense of like what it is that I'm trying to like explain. Like this is how I see everything.
So this project took quite a number of years to complete. I understand. I think half a decade, if I'm understanding correctly. What was the process like to create the Sky Remembers, to channel those unseen energies into a way that you could communicate how you see the world to the best of your ability?
Oh my gosh, like I started this in like 2020, and at that point in time, like I had no idea that this was going to come to be an exhibition. So like I don't know, every year I was working on different projects, kind of like different themes. And I had like the hopes that eventually it would like hopefully become an exhibition. But I just really liked kind of diving into and exploring like different areas because I did some interactive pieces like a walking simulator. um, I think I've done like a couple of them, but there's only one that's at Urban Shaman. And then I did the
Mm.
VR piece recently, which is like newer to me because I haven't really explored much of VR lately. I made like a lot of 3D animations, and like each time I was doing those, they're almost kind of like their own separate like little worlds that I was
Mm.
creating. And it's just like I don't even like they either come from like dreams or like I'm inspired by certain songs or whoever I'm listening to at this point in time. Um, and like that kind of helps go into the whole process of like crafting these different worlds. And then they all kind of each have their own little story to go with it.
This exhibition has been on display now for a few weeks at the Urban Shaman Gallery in downtown Winnipeg. I'm wondering, as you come into contact and talk with these other artists, all of whom have, many of them, I should say, have their own understanding of what Indigenous futurism is or what that looks like for them, how has presenting this exhibition helped to maybe not maybe not to evolve your understanding of what that futurism looks like, but how does that maybe add to how you see Indigenous futurism, or does it?
So I'd say for how I see it and like the way that's kind of changed over like I'd say maybe even this year, one of the biggest pieces and the one that I'm the most proud of would be the one that I had called "If Time Had Listened," and it was like it's a print in there, and there's like three pieces, and then there's like a figure of like three different women in there. And then so that piece, when I was creating it, I was envisioning, imagining like following like my mom and my grandmother's like kind of footsteps because there was a lot of like similarities that had happened
Mm.
between us, both good and bad. And I was thinking about how there are certain things that I know my mom tried not to pass down um, onto me, but it still happened because like my mom was like a residential school survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then so there's things that her and I had conversations about, and like things that I didn't want to have to pass down when I, was hoping to have kids. And I think earlier this
Mm.
year I found out that I'll be expecting in May. So it was,
Wow.
it kind of was crazy because it hit me because I was really working on that piece a lot and I was really thinking about that. So I get a little emotional with it, but like in a beautiful, beautiful way. And like I'm really happy about it. And I feel like I kind of created that piece and maybe it like manifested something.
Yeah. Wow. What do you hope as you think about the next chapter of your life and bringing children into this world? What do you hope to communicate about Indigenous futurism and maybe by extension, what a future for Indigenous peoples here on Turtle Island might look like through your art towards your children?
Yeah. I hope that they like can see a lot of inspiration in it and feel like power in it and not feel ashamed. And I want them to grow up like surrounded by like Indigenous art. And I have every intention of like constantly like bringing them to different art things, different movies. And I want them to grow up and be really proud about it and then to not shy away from it. And I think that there's so many beautiful teachings, like just in like storytelling and talking with kids, that will like help the process of either helping me inform like my art in the future. But then I also hope, maybe they become an artist and even better than me.
The next iteration of Indigenous futurism continuing to pass down through the family. It's a wonderful exhibition, and it's so wonderful to be able to speak to you about it today, Taylor. The Sky Remembers is on display at Urban Shaman Gallery until December the 13th. We have more information at our website a little bit later on, classic107.com and the Classic 107 app. It's been such a joy to speak with you, Taylor, and thank you so much again for taking the time.
Yes, thank you very much.